Bravery. What actually is that? Well, according to Google, bravery is possessing or displaying courage. However, for this brief, I won't be doing the classic slaying dragons or standing up to a bully. I'm going to be combining two art styles that I've never done before. So scary. The point of this brief is to experiment stylistically and or try something new. I've decided to try and combine naturalism graphic design with abstract paintings. When I go down the painting route, I want the paintings to have a lot of thick texture to them. When I've done them paintings, I'm going to scan them in using the printer at college, email them to myself, and then edit them on Photoshop, and then go over things on Illustrator to make them into graphics rather than physical paintings. For the topic, I didn't really want to be brave because I'm already being quite brave with the style and also with the digital sketchbook, and so I'm doing a vlog rather than a sketchbook, and for me that's quite different. So I'm just doing climate change as a subject because I didn't want to be too adventurous with that because I'm already being quite adventurous with the style and also the way I'm communicating the project. So now that we've got like the basics of what the brief is about, let's get some ideas. This is a spider diagram. You can pause it if you want to look at it. I did also make a Pinterest board full of inspiration, which is here. It's very cute. I think it's quite elaborate. I like it. Now that I've looked at some inspo, I'm gonna get on with like the facts. For first off, I'd like to look at how art became abstract in the first place. A lot of people struggle with this question because we did go from very intricate and deep pieces that were so detailed, like the creation of Adam or the Mona Lisa or Girl with the Pearl Earring. Like, we've got all of these different paintings that are so elaborate. I guess a lot of people would say they're more aesthetically pleasing or it feels like real art. But abstract came about in the late 19th century to the early 20th century, so the 1800s to the early 1900s. Some would say that the cause of the rise of abstract would also be the rise in minimalism, because that has gone haywire over the last few years, over the last 10 years actually. So you're seeing a lot more minimalist spaces, such as people decorating their homes in more plain ways, architecture is becoming more plain. If you were to look at the chest of drawers from 100 or 200 years ago, it would have a lot of decorations within like maybe the brass handles, or the wood would be carved in a really nice way and there'd be lots of stain on it, as opposed to chest of drawers of today. There's a big difference. So our chest of drawers today, they might be handleless, they might be just plain white, there might be a bit of wood maybe, but it's not very intricate. People usually decorate themselves. If they're quite maximalist, they'll get something minimalist and then make it to their own personality. However, that is not the only thing that influenced abstract art. There were a few other reasons, such as philosophical reasons, religious reasons, emotional and spiritual experiences. They're just a few that I found online, but there's more than that. Some, if not most, trends will end and burn out. However, abstract art has been given the chance to develop and evolve. This is definitely seen through contemporary art. It's had a massive influence on contemporary art. There are also some of the most famous artists in the world, like Picasso or Kandinsky, who are known for their abstract art. I think abstract art is quite important because it sparks conversations rather than telling a story. And of course, telling a story is also a good thing, but sparking a conversation encourages people to come up with their own ideas and their own ideals, and explain and express things in different ways that suit them most. I've just got some example pictures popping up here, which is quite interesting for you to have a look at. But a lot of them are based around emotion, feeling, spiritual experiences, and they allow you to see it in your own way rather than being strictly towards this agenda. Say like Suffragette Muse, let's just say that as an example, that tells a very strict storyline of Jesus meeting his disciples after he was crucified 3 days later, and it encourages other people to follow Caravaggio's beliefs. It's very strict and it can't really be interpreted in too many different ways because it is what it is and the storyline is very obvious. Whereas with abstract art, you can take a bit of a step back from what it's supposed to be and focus on what you think it's gonna be, or focus on what you think it's like, or what story it tells you. And I really enjoy that. Next, I'd like to talk about some artists and just do a bit of research and tell you about them. Hello. I think you're supposed to be watching her talk about Herbert Brandel, not watching me procrastinate. Hello, it's a different day and I'm in my pyjamas. Don't bully me. Herbert Brandel is an Austrian artist famous for his work in the n01 group. He doesn't necessarily have a most famous piece like most artists. Brandel is known for his chunky paint and abstract and sporadic style. He started developing this closer in the early 2000s after the millennium. What I like most about his work is like the variations of colours and the chunkiness of the paint. This is what actually drew me to his art because that's what I want the paintings that I'm going to be using for my project to look like. I want them to be really thick and textured. I feel like that's going to be a very nice contrast to the sharp, clean graphic design that I'm going to be putting on it, which leads me to my next artist, Sebastian Baldian. Now he's a really good graphic designer. I found him on Behance. He seems to be quite new, seeing as there's not much stuff posted on there, and I can only find one portfolio that he's ever done, his 2025 one. His designs are very sleek and very clear, which is what I like because that's what I was saying earlier. I want them to contrast against the really ruggedness of my abstract paintings that I've doing and scanning it. What first caught my eye when I found him initially was his work with Mono Blanco. It's a climbing company. I thought his logo was really creative that he made for that, and also some of the branding, I'll put it up here, some of the branding is very similar to what I want to do, apart from he does it with photography rather than a painting. I'm gonna leave that in.
Hello, it's voiceover Chloe. I'm a little bit ill, so please bear with me. So here I'm just using a smoother brush to, basically this is my training one, if you want to put it like that, just seeing how I'm actually going to do it, so I don't actually like this one. Just a load of squiggles. This one I painted on a background and then used a sponge to go over it to create a bit more complex texture. For a lot of them I like just squish the sponge down to make like a spiky texture and then dragged it across the page and created shapes like that. I quite like how this one turned out. This one I sized up my brush and used a more bristly brush, if that makes sense, to get better textures and because the last brush was mixing the colours too much and this kept it nice and separate and you get the texture with the colours and the physical texture. This next one, I just dragged the brush across the page. I thought that was quite nice. I thought it kind of looked like wood or just like an abstract land art, I guess. Here I tried to use chalk to thicken the paint, but it ended up thinning it, which was strange. It went really watery, as you can see on the palette there, and it's just mixing together like nothing, as you can see here. So the only texture that that's actually got is like the lumps of chalk in it. These circles I quite enjoyed. I wish I'd put a bit more brown in, or a bit subtler brown, but oh well. This next one I used masking tape to make sharper and crisp edges. I quite liked that. It's giving kind of Pinteresty vibes, a bit more modern. That's satisfying peel. Take a moment for that. And then after I did that, I just painted over the outside of the edge and then painted inwards. Just get some funky patterns. I didn't like this last one. The composition is just not it. I also did get it all over the desk. Luckily, I had a wet towel right next to me. Then I did the same thing again. I masking taped all the edges down and then did it in blue instead. I also didn't do a gradient for this one because I thought that that looked a bit strange in the finish. Another satisfying peel. I was very happy with myself that the paper didn't rip up, so that was nice. And then for this one, I tried something a bit different. I used the big paintbrush again to use to make water splashes, I guess. And I really like that. I like the colours that I used for that as well. This is them all just like finished together. Here I am. I've just scanned them in on the printer at this point, and I'm just downloading them all onto my laptop, onto the desktop, so I can edit them into Photoshop. Here I am in Photoshop, opening up the paintings, and now I'm just putting them all onto their individual A3 page. I did this mainly because I didn't want all of the rugged, not so clean edges, and then I also went through and individually edited the colours on all of the paintings because I thought that they looked a bit better if they were more saturated, or if I changed the colours a little bit. This was the one that I was very excited to change because I didn't like the red in them. I was trying to make purple, but I should have mixed it separately and then put it on. But it was my first two, so I was just learning from mistakes. This is when I realised I really hated it. Also, my friend Dorian came over and had a little chat with me. This one was quite difficult to size up actually because for some reason I didn't actually make it A3 or A4 because I did them on A3 pieces of paper, but I only covered half of them for one painting, just to save room. And obviously I scaled them up to A3, and apparently I hadn't done it completely A4, which is a little bit annoying, but well. This is where I started editing the actual paintings. I wanted to get a different camera angle, so I thought instead of filming it from the side, I would do a screen recording, but somehow that's deleted itself, so I don't have that footage anymore. And I also didn't get screenshots because I thought that it was recording, so I lost a good couple of hours of recording there, so I'm just gonna have to skip to the mock-ups and the final result. First of all, I'd just like to say there's only one experiment that I actually like. This one is not one of them. I think the crisis is too small and the background is just horrendous. I used the same background for this one. The crisis is a little bit bigger because I thought it needed to stand out a bit more. It did not. It could stay hidden. It was not necessary. This next one I got rid of it, which was a good plan. I don't like the background still though. I think the A and the T is just too thin. It needs to be chunkier. This one I hated. I don't even know why I included it, but I hate how I basically ruined it. This one I think is a bit better. I just don't like how the lines just cut off. It just looks a bit odd, but I like the abstract outcome. This one I quite like. This is my favourite one. I like how it overlaps. I like how it's clean against a rough background. That's exactly what I was going for. This one is similar. I just added the font again underneath and made it clear to give a bit of a jazzy effect. I didn't really like it as much, but it's still okay. This one is the epitome of horrible. It's not readable, the legibility is absolutely zero, and that's because the colours are way too dark, so I did actually fix that. But now you can only read you can't read the colours or the forest, which is a little bit strange, so I'd like to remake that one in my next experiment. Hi, so I've just done my other experiments, and be warned, for me, they're just getting all the bad stuff out the way before the final piece, and hopefully the final piece is better. I shall do an update when I have the final piece ready, because it is currently the night before, and I need to do that now, and then I also have video footage to edit, sorry. I'm very ill. I slept for 2 hours, and it is currently 11:20. Hi, it's voiceover me again. So first off, I have these two. I do not like them whatsoever, so let's just move on. I have this one, which is when I started to think a little more loosely, rather than being so rigid, but I still didn't quite like it. I just like the text. Then I decided to change the text anyway and just wrote fish in this weird composition and then used the two fish that I drew on my iPad. This one I moved on a little bit more and then just wrote it straight down. Didn't really like that so much, so I went back to the original-ish design. and then just put it a different way. It looks a little more like it says fish because the other one didn't. And then I also cropped it, the background, and I quite like how that looked. And then the next one I just removed the writing like altogether because I didn't really think it needed it there. It just looks a bit strange. And then I decided I would like some writing on there, so I'd put it around the edges using the text on path tool, and I put the in a far, far away galaxy, blah blah blah, around the edges because I thought might be a nice border. And then I did the next one, changed up the colours, and then I decided that I liked it better with the fish overlapping rather than underneath the writing because it's written I think 3 or 4 times, so it's quite easy to read even if there's something over the top of it. Now that I have like the experiments done, I want to have a look at making my final piece. I want to keep the drawing style that I tried with the fish. I really liked that idea and how it wasn't just typography based like what I was doing at first. I also did a flower drawing, as which I quite liked the idea of, but I didn't like the outcome, so I'd like to try that again. I would like to incorporate some typography in there as well, but I really like the illustration part of it. But I think I might be even more brave and put more typography in than illustration just to get out of my comfort zone a bit more. I'm not sure whether to do the ocean or a forest because I like both of them, but I think I can do both because my final outcome I wanted to be a series of a notebook, a tote bag, and a pen. So I could do one for each, one representing the ocean and one representing the land, I guess. Just before we carry on, I just want to say that I did create this for shits and gigs, I guess. The writing that's on it came from a song, which I thought was very smart. So instead of putting my painting on there, I put obviously the Mona Lisa on, but it's the Mona Lisa where it's been destroyed by soup by climate activists. And I thought this was quite brave because it's challenging destructive activism, but activism seems to get very mixed up sometimes with it seems to get mixed up with actual progress. So I really liked the irony in this with obviously what I'm doing right now isn't activism, it's raising awareness, and a lot of the time people misconstrued those definitions, and I think this is quite a funny way of saying that. Okay, so this is part of my final piece. It's just like the process. So here I started with 2 separate like the paintings and then overlapped them and then just played about with the typography. Then I decided to bring in the flower from this little thing that I did, and I actually drew this on my iPad and then put it in. And then we go up here, and this is where I added all of like the impacts of deforestation is and what that gets you, which is 1 mahogany table. I put the flower in the corner, and then I did it again just to see what it would look like with the flower in both corners, but I thought it looked way too crowded, so I got rid of that. Then I did it again. This is the one that I actually went with. It's why I put the green box there. And this one has no flower in it. It has all the reasons, the fancy text, and what that produced. And then I also added the question, was it worth it to make the viewer think? I also put in the bottom bit of the painting because I wanted it to be like the tree trunk is upright and then it's fallen over. This design is what I was going to put on the pen, but I was running out of time. It's very, very late, and I'm trying to get my sleep schedule back on track. So I was not about to go digging through loads of mock-ups at this time of night. So I ended up using a makeup pencil, but it doesn't really matter because you can't tell. It just looks like a normal pencil, and then I just put the little flower as like the logo and then made it like a little bit green, which I quite liked. This is the mock-up that I made of it on the tote bag, which I really like. I don't think it's completely perfect. I think that I could have lightened the background colours because it does look a bit dark, but that also I think it might just be the nature of the mock-up and where the shadow is, because the bottom bit doesn't look bad, but the top bit like looks a bit iffy. I feel like if it was a different mock-up maybe it would work better. This is the mock-up that I use for most of my experiments just because I just wanted to see what it looked like in real life. So I ended up using it for this, and I like it. It looks like a nice bag, really. Altogether, I like the design. I think it's quite cohesive. It's got elements of naturalism, and then it's also got elements of abstract and bold graphic design as well. So I think I've combined everything that I want to in it. This is the mock-up of the notebook that I made. I just put like the actual design on the notebook cover. I still really like it. I think this mock-up definitely shows the piece in its true colours because it hasn't got like that much shading on like over where the actual image is. The shading's just like to show the dimensions of the actual notebook, which is good because you can actually properly see the design. And then last but actually definitely least is these pencils. I think they're very boring. I do wish that I'd gotten this done sooner so that I could actually spend more time looking for a proper mock-up. But that's a mistake on my part because these are very boring. It's just a gold tip with, a green tip with a gold leaf and flower on it. I mean, overall they're quite cute, but they're not. Hi, so that's everything to do with this brief. That's the brief finished. All the work's complete now. I do have to do the crit tomorrow, so I'm gonna get feedback for my work on that. And I'll see how that goes. I'm quite happy with it. Could be a little bit better, but for me it's a bit of a practice run because I'm not really sure how they're going to play out for the rest of the pathway. So I guess we'll see. That's me doing the video editing. I'm quite excited to hear other people's feedback at the crit tomorrow because I know people can be harsh, but that's what I want. I want to know what's actually wrong with my work so that I can fix it. I know some people are quite sensitive to this like sort of stuff, but I'm like the kind of person that would prefer you be honest with me. So I guess we'll see how that goes, and then I'll be uploading a separate video that's like crit response, I guess. And then like there's some writing I have to do on like a summary of Be Brave, so I'm gonna put that in that video as like a script, just so that it ties in with how I've displayed this brief so far, which is video documenting. Thanks for watching.